So in this video, we're going to be talking about the men who had to try to be Augustus after Augustus. So what is the Principate? The Principate is this individual who has the authority and responsibility for the city of Rome and the Roman world. And the precedent that's built into that is that this individual is chosen by merit. And so the way in which this is accomplished is for the person who has that role of faith and trust uh, uh, designates a successor who has that same level of capability, who has the acumen and talent and the capacity to command that level of faith and trust and old-fashioned Roman auctoritas, and that person is then adopted as a son. So this is the thing that is most distinctive about the Principate. The Principate is first and foremost this individual who has this authority, but the method of succession is a extremely Roman means of passing on a particular name. And that name, in the days of the Republic, that was making sure that, if such and such so-and-so didn't have a son to carry on the name of his particular, elite family, patrician or plebeian, it doesn't matter, then a son would be adopted in from another family in order to carry on the family name. The Principate carries that forward as a means of ensuring that the people have a person that is worthy of being believed in. That faith and trust is being perpetuated, and it remains from the faction of the Populares into this permanent role. That faith and trust remains the core and center of the Principate. The principle of adoption is the means of transmitting this. The thing that is striking about the period after Augustus is that it's in some ways sets the tone, but it also is a period of sort of early installment weirdness. In other words, the Julio-Claudians, the principate that follows directly off of Augustus. Augustus's immediate successors within his extended family, the Julio-Claudians, very much continue Augustus rather than establishing a foundation for everything that is to come. They are distinctive and strange in a lot of ways compared to the Principate as it becomes established later. And so you look at the Julio-Claudians, they form this early stage, and then the emperors that come after, the dynasties that come after, have a character that establishes a new normal after the Julio-Claudians. What's characteristic about the Julio-Claudians, distinctive and unique to them. First of all, the Julio-Claudians, everything is still kind of ad hoc. Power is conferred in installments and in distinct roles, but more to the point, each individual princeps is sort of a surprise, and each one is finding his own way of being this role of succeeding into this name, Augustus. The financial structure and administration of the province is sort of reinvented each time as each new successor finds and explores his own way of being this sort of atlas for the Roman world. The other thing that's distinctive about the Julio-Claudians is that there is this sprawling imperial family that has a collective resonance within the Romans. There's a strong sense that that this is a family that is made up of lots of different talented people, that this is a wellspring of all sorts of promising men and women who are collectively beneficial to Rome. And so this extended family is in and of itself a benefit to Rome, and a one of the ways in which the Principate survives Augustus. So Augustus rules for so long that there's that the continuity from Augustus is very difficult and very perilous. And the sense that Augustus himself builds up this massive imperial family, and gives it a presence and a visibility, and draws from within it, is one of the reasons that things survive Augustus. Uh, Augustus, during his reign, develops a policy of offering opportunities and generalships and so forth within the sprawling extended family, so that there's lots of individuals who have a chance to become prominent, to gain experience, to demonstrate their talent and acumen militarily, politically, administratively, at Rome, in the provinces. All of these opportunities for individuals, and the succession is kept within this same broad pool. This is a sort of a microcosm of the vast Roman nobility, made up of all these men that are supposed to rise up through the nobility with military experience and administrative experiences. This within the Julio-Claudians become the sort of concentrated nobility that is fertile in producing people who are statesmen and leaders. And so the Julio-Claudians sort of collectively have this role. Um, and so this is as a result of this, it is not particularly surprising that not only are generalships and governorships kept within the family to the extent that possible. Obviously, there's so many generals and provinces that this can't be done. But Augustus limits triumphs and ovations to within the imperial family, for example, and prominent leadership roles go to members of the imperial family first. And succession. So it's not particularly striking that succession is kept within this large, broad, fertile pool of individuals. Another thing that's striking about this is the prominent role of women within the Julio-Claudians. So one way of looking at this is, if you look at this family tree, there's sort of the Tiberius side on the left, and the Tiberius's brother Drusus has a side on the right, and these sort of join together with Germanicus and Agrippina. Uh, Another way of looking at this, though, is to see the lines of women and how they are dramatically influential, not only in terms of succession, but in as you look at the stories of these individual women, the roles that they play. And so, Livia is extremely prominent. Obviously, Livia works as Augustus's partner throughout his reign and continues to be influential afterwards under Tiberius. But we also have Octavia, who is the prototypical Roman matron. We heard about her in terms of her marriage to Antony and how Antony had set her aside. Octavia is a demonstration of the transmission of Roman culture, and her daughter Antonia even more so. Antonia was widely regarded as being the embodiment of Roman virtue, and this is passed on to her two sons, Germanicus and Claudius, both of which were widely held up as being more noble and more the embodiment of ancient Roman mos maiorum than anyone else in the imperial family. Likewise, we have Agrippina herself, and Agrippinilla, Julia, all of these individuals who are influential in their own way, for better or for worse, and have a distinct impact on the shape and flow of how the Principate develops. So Tiberius, as we know, is the successor to Augustus. Augustus's stepson. He is, famously Augustus's last choice for being his heir. He has many other possibilities before Tiberius, but by the time Augustus dies, Tiberius is the one that's left. He's his stepson. But this shouldn't overshadow the fact that Tiberius is immensely talented as a general and as an administrator. He simply has a grumpy personality, and this turns into a sort of archness and contrariness. Early on in his reign, he's sarcastic and finds a way to deal with the Senate and the nobility in a way that is different from Augustus's genial but imperious nature. And this proves to be, effective. Tiberius's dry wit inspires some authors even to experiment with parody and so forth. But as Tiberius continues to reign and finds that this role is tremendously isolating, and that he's surrounded by people that he can't trust, whether because of their sycophancy or because of the role of power that he has, or whatever. Tiberius becomes more and more bitter, more and more withdrawn, and his personality darkens. And so one of the chief outcomes of that is that Tiberius becomes more and more fixated on attacks on the Principate and on himself and on the members of the royal family. He finds this to be a threat to the stability of the Roman nobility and to the Principate, which, bear in mind, A, is invented by Augustus, but B, has no rules. There's no constitution. There's no, there's no precedent. The one thing about the Republic is everybody knew what a consul could and couldn't do, because a consul, was something that had existed for hundreds and hundreds of years and had built up this whole body of precedents and responsibilities. To be the Augustus, there wasn't anything. And so Tiberius saw this as potentially vulnerable and fragile and in need of protection. And this protection took the form of increasingly attacking those who spoke against or wrote against Tiberius, even increasingly, if this is justified, if this is somebody taking issue with the consequences of a particular policy in a rational and rhetorical way. Tiberius started to see this more and more as attacks on himself and on the Principate and on the imperial family. And so Tiberius started to rely upon treason trials, in which people who attacked the Principate or attacked himself, whether in satire or in chance speech in the forum, or in any form, even in private homes, informants would let Tiberius know, and there would be a treason trial where the individual who had slandered Tiberius or the Principate would be accused of attacking the Roman state itself, would be accused of maiestas. And maiestas is a form of political treason for which the punishment is death. The punishment for treason is always death in every period of history throughout the story of mankind. And so these maiestas trials become an increasingly dark element of Tiberius's rule, and often leads to people choosing to take suicide rather than being put on trial, leads to a great deal of injustice, and a means of Tiberius as princeps having a way of manipulating the system that is, and manipulating the political landscape by bringing people forward and pushing people back. That is, less than righteous, and this is a very negative precedent that Tiberius establishes. As princeps, otherwise, Tiberius is focused on making sure that Rome is solvent and safe. So he's careful with the treasury, and restricts the amount of spending, and tries to ensure that the legions are functioning efficiently, and that the provinces have ways of encouraging their economy and so forth. Tiberius is doing everything that he can to develop the Roman state collectively from his position of authority in Rome. The great hope for the next generation is Germanicus, and Germanicus is Tiberius's nephew, the son of his brother Drusus, the eldest son of Drusus, the brother of Tiberius. And Germanicus, unlike Tiberius, is immensely popular. Tiberius is grouchy and gruff, and inspires loyalty in the people and the troops because he's the heir of Augustus, because his talent is unquestioned, especially as a general. He inspires loyalty through fear, in a manner of speaking. But he's known to be, somebody that is a solid and dependable man. Germanicus, on the other hand, has even more charisma than Augustus. He is handsome. He is capable. He is a great general in himself, like his father Drusus. Germanicus is seen to be the hope for the future, the sort of the second coming of Augustus, and a demonstration of the fertility of the Julio-Claudian family, and the sort of justification for continuing to rely upon these great individuals. For this reason, Tiberius, in the dark part of his soul, mistrusts Germanicus, and attempts to undermine him. And so Tiberius gives in to the temptation to use his political machinations to set obstacles in Germanicus's way, and in particular, he sets up a governor that's in Syria that is in his pocket, to obstruct Germanicus when Germanicus is in the east, overseeing all the provinces on that end of the empire. And then Germanicus dies suddenly and mysteriously, and there's a great deal of speculation about this. The story is that he's in Egypt, making a tour of all the East, because he wasn't supposed to go to Egypt, but he was fascinated by Egyptian history. So he goes anyway, despite there being a law that dates back to Augustus's time that says that no senator can enter Egypt without permission of the princeps. The reason being that Egypt is immensely wealthy in terms of its agriculture, and has this separate history of monarchy, with powerful monarchy with the pharaohs and Cleopatra. And so Augustus had made this rule: he can't go to Egypt and potentially build a power there like Antony had without permission. Germanicus goes to Egypt without Tiberius's permission, and so for Tiberius this is the last straw. But Germanicus ends up with all these increasing situations in Egypt that are without explanation. He encounters omens and prodigies, and handwriting on the wall and so forth. And these stories go out of proportion. The rumors and legends of this, we're not even 100% sure how much of this actually happened. But the story is that Germanicus is in a way almost frightened to death, that he is so much the ancient primeval Roman, filled with Romanness, and and mos maiorum, that his level of superstition, his level of awe with regard to omens and prodigies is as great as any Roman. And this, perhaps combined with some illness that is involved with coming to Egypt, leads to his premature death, which devastates the populace and leaves them, faced with, maybe the Tiberiuses of the world are in a better position than the Germanicuses of the world. And so as Tiberius continues his reign and becomes more crotchety and more mistrustful, he decides to remove himself from the cesspool of Rome and retire to the island of Capri, governing Rome through an agent, through the praetorian prefect, who happens to be a knight named Sejanus. Sejanus, who is acting on Tiberius's behalf and making speeches for Tiberius to the Senate, and seeing to all the administrative details in the capital, so Tiberius doesn't have to. Well, it turns out, wonder of wonders, that Sejanus can't be trusted and intends to use this position to grab hold of the principate for himself. And of course, there's only been 2 princeps so far. There's no history. There's no precedent. Sejanus could very well be establishing, okay, this is how you do it. Sejanus cements his position by having an affair with a member of the imperial family named Drusilla, and all this is a scheme and a mechanism to bring himself to replace Tiberius, who at first is none the wiser. As it turns out, Claudius, who, because he is ignored, set aside from the family because of his clubfoot and his half-deafness, and he's generally thought to be defective. And so Claudius is set aside and ignored, and so Claudius ends up hearing things that people don't want anyone else to know. Claudius hears about Sejanus's plot and informs Tiberius, and so Tiberius acts in a very typically Tiberius way, which is to send a speech to the Senate for Sejanus to read, which turns out to be an indictment of Sejanus himself. And so as Sejanus is reading this speech, which very much in the this is an echo of the Catiline speech, except Sejanus is reading the speech himself, and as he's reading the speech and becoming more and more horrified, his lieutenant Macro is standing by waiting to arrest him, and as soon as he's done, Sejanus is hauled away. But this doesn't improve things for Tiberius. It simply demonstrates to Tiberius that no one in Rome can be trusted. And so the Principate is in grave danger here of foundering under the weight of Tiberius's personality. And we'll continue talking about this in the next video.